Just how old is the Republic in new canon? One of my initial concerns with the High Republic was the idea that it might push the Republic's development much farther forward in time because of how it seems to represent the state of hyperspace travel and exploration. But to what extent is that really the case? We have several hints or statements from earlier canon sources which imply the real timeline isn't that different from Legends in theory, but in practice, what should we expect that to look like, since there have been fewer opportunities to see it directly represented compared to Legends so far? Considering information directly from the movies, Obi-Wan's line about the Republic lasting 1,000 generations, which was extrapolated to about 25,000 years for Legends, still implies a pretty long period. There have even been a few sourcebook references which have upheld at least roughly the 25,000 year figure. But we also have some more specific events filling out history before the High Republic which do help set a bit of a timeline. In the novel Tarkin, The 100-Year Darkness, where the Sith split off from the Jedi, was stated to have been thousands of years before. We also have several mentions of wars between the Jedi and Mandalorians from thousands of years before the Clone Wars, including from the Clone Wars cartoon. For some of these, while they only mention the Jedi, at least I personally tend to consider a mention of the Jedi as kind of indicating the Republic is probably around as well. Both Legends and New Canon seem to have an in-universe point at which people start to refer to the Republic of the past as the Old Republic, which also seems to indicate at least some sense of longevity. Even within the High Republic itself, there are a few references to events which do support this. Of particular note is the Amaxan Station in High Republic Into the Dark. The Amaxan are another ancient warrior culture which were involved in other wars against the Republic thousands of years before the High Republic. They left behind relics of their former civilization, later inspiring a paramilitary organization to take up their name and aid the First Order against the New Republic. So then what does give the impression of the High Republic potentially compressing this? From an in-universe standpoint, the High Republic is focusing more on the difficulties of integrating newly navigated territory and bringing much greater parts of the Outer Rim into the Republic's sphere of influence. The core, even out to the Mid-Rim, seems like it's been pretty well explored with well-established hyperspace lanes between most points, but even though specific routes do exist through the Outer Rim, there's far fewer and they exist more along specific arteries. So when the Outer Rim and its exploration get brought up in the books, it's usually in the context of connecting it out more, typically giving the impression that it's probably less connected than it actually is, or that there's been very limited connection between the Republic and any part of the Outer Rim up to this point. Really, it's less that the galaxy is that much smaller a place and more that the stories put the lens on those difficulties where they still exist, compared to more modern times. It's easy to think of each region in the galaxy being the core, mid-rim, outer rim, or wherever else, being an almost all or nothing proposition in its inclusion in the galaxy or not. But even in the High Republic, it's not quite that stark. Really, with any region, and especially the Outer Rim, which is so large, it's about how far you are along in the progression of exploring individual worlds within that, or integrating individual worlds within that. Legends was really no different in that respect either. From the earliest points in Legends history, we see individual planets in the Outer Rim, or even the unknown regions, being actually somewhat integrated to galactic society. Think about how there are Rakatan artifacts on Tatooine and Kashyyyk and other pretty remote places in Knights of the Old Republic. Really, it's the density of occupied planets in any given region that tends to be what varies from period to period. The difficulty in hyperspace exploration is less the sheer distance between the core to the Outer Rim compared to the Mid-Rim, it's about integrating safe and well-mapped hyperspace routes between places. In the core, worlds are some combination of closer together or more densely packed, so there's both more incentive and ability to link together there earlier. And while it's certainly possible to make it right out to the galaxy's edge, maintaining well-mapped hyperspace routes to multiple places gets a bit more difficult. In Legends, during the New Sith Wars 1,000 years before the original trilogy, there were similarly large swaths of space which had not been integrated within the Republic at any point, even if there were some planets within those regions, like Terras or Telos, which had been members. There are a few additional case studies of planets which support this model of galactic expansion. Eriadu, a planet in the southern half of the Outer Rim, is both powerful and well integrated to both the High Republic and the Republic of Legends. Their importance rivaled many core worlds at points, even if they were somewhat more unique in their local level of relative importance, and that's the key point there. It was a developed planet in the Outer Rim, but it was more surrounded by underdeveloped or undeveloped territory, with proportionally greater amounts of unexplored space around it. It also puts them closer to the path of any outside raiding groups, like the Nihil in the High Republic, which is a contributing factor to Eriadu being a major proponent of militarizing the Republic during the High Republic period, something it shares in common with the Eriadu in the Legends continuity, where Tarkin's family were the ones responsible for that push in the decades before the Clone Wars. Other groups like the Banking Clan were fairly well integrated to the Republic on the opposite side of the galaxy from Ariadu, so it's not just an isolated thing there. The faster development of the Republic beyond this point is another reason it often feels somewhat strange to people, I think, but there's reasons that hold up for this as well. Other groups like the Togruta, who are covered directly in the High Republic, had developed independently in these regions, so when they built connections with the High Republic territory, it was more about bridging gaps rather than starting from scratch. Significant amounts of navigational data would have come to each faction with that, rather than simply expanding out into nothingness. There are also some documented instances, at least in Legends, where colony worlds or even entire splinter factions would branch off from the Republic into what would otherwise have been empty space, or space that was developed by another species, only to lose contact for thousands of years, which is actually what happened with the Sith in Legends. So rather than representing some massive amount of expansion, it was more about putting those pieces together. Either way, that's going to do it for today. Hope you've enjoyed this exploration of exploration in the High Republic and in Legends. If you haven't checked it out yet, I have done a full history of the Legends galaxy in a previous video last week, and I'm working on a similar video but covering the warlords after Endor. Over the next month or two, I'd like to get a few videos out like that, so if you have any ideas you'd like to see covered in that style, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.